So we saw the section where the Anatma is being described, and in that he started by saying about the gross body made up of 7 dhatus, and this gross body is called as the Sthula Sharira. It is tangible, hence it is called as the gross, and identifying with this Aham Mameti Prathitam Shariram Mohaspadam, that's the seat of delusion. To think that I am this body rather than I am having this body, that is the seat of delusion. Then this mind, this gross body which is there is made up of the 5 grossified elements. The mind which is there is made up of the 5 subtle elements. So what is the difference between the subtle elements and the gross elements? The process of Panchikarana that was indicated. It is not fully explained here in Vivek Chudamani. But we saw that how the process of Panchikarana happens. The 5 elements, they merge with each other and they become grossified, and the body is made from that. So the tamasic aspect of the subtle 5 elements, they go through the combination. And it is this tamasic aspect which makes the body and all the bodies in the world, the objects also. The importance of understanding that is the mind is made up of the sattvic aspect, as we will see ahead. It is much more subtler than the body. And so using the ability of this mind, we can detach from this false notion that I am the body. The next section now goes on to speak about the senses and how the sense objects are a trap and how our senses are so fascinated by the sense objects that we feel we get completely bound by them. Some of the very, very famous verses of Vivek Chudamani are in this section. And these verses are also very helpful for cultivating Vairagya. Just like we have Bhajagovindam, Vairagya Shatakam. These verses here in Vivek Chudamani now, the section 76 to 82, to cultivate Tivra Vairagya, to cultivate an intense level of dispassion from the sense objects. These verses are helpful because these are a reminder to us about what are the dangers of the sense objects. Let us see 76th one. Shabdadibhi panchabhireva pancha panchatvamapu swagunena baddhaha Kuranga patanga meena bringa nara panchabhiranchita kim. So he says here that Shabdadibhi panchabhireva pancha. The 5 senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, each of them have the 5 corresponding sense objects. So, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Shabda is for the hearing. Sparsha is for touch. Rupa is for the eyes, the seeing. Rasa is for the taste. Gandha is smell. So the objects are represented by these 5. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. And each of them have the corresponding sense faculty. Shabdadibhihi pancha, bhireva pancha. So the senses have their 5 objects, each of them. And because they are attached to each object, each sense is attached to their particular object, panchatvam apuhu swagunena baddhaha. Panchatvam apu is a term to indicate death. Because when the body dies, it will go back to 5 elements. And so that process of disintegration of the body is called panchatvam apuhu. So Panchatvam Apuhu means the body will go back to the 5 elements. Meaning it is so dangerous that one will die. In what sense? We will see here. Swagunena Baddhaha. Each one is attached to one. Swagunena. Now here the example is being given now in the third line of every sense organ, every sense faculty being attached to its own sense object in one creature. For example, here it is said, Kuranga. So the deer is attached to the sound more than the other senses. So Swagunena Baddha means that one particular sense faculty is very powerful and that jiva is attached to that particular sense object. So the deer is very attached to sound. When the deer is attached to the sound, shabda, deer by itself is very fickle, it jumps about. Very easy, not very easy for the hunter to catch. But if the hunter plays some music, especially some stringed instrument, the deer waits to listen and the hunter shoots. So Panchatvam, the deer dies. One sense organ, one sense faculty the deer is attached to. Then Matanga, Kuranga Matanga. Matanga is the elephant. So the elephant is attached to touch. And these elephants in the mating season, they move about very carelessly, rubbing the bodies against each other, and they fall into the huge pit that is created by the hunter. They are trapped. So Kuranga, Matanga, Patanga. Patanga is moth. So that moth is attached to Rupa. The moth, as we see in the rainy season, etc., when the fire is lit, the moth comes and it is so fascinated by that form, the light, it cannot control itself, it just goes straight into the fire, dies. Kuranga, Matanga, Patanga, Meena. The fish is attached to taste, rasa. So this fish knows that there is a worm and it's only a bait, there is a hook. If it goes and eats that worm, it will get caught. But it is irresistible. The fish still goes and eats and the fish gets trapped, dies. And Patanga, Meena, Bhringa. Bhringa is the bee. So the bee is attached to smell, Gandha. So even though the bee knows that the flower is closing, the sunset is happening, sunset is about to happen and the flower is closing, the bee cannot resist. It just goes, it continues to be inside that to sip more nectar and the flower closes completely and it gets trapped and dies. So all the 5, Panchatvam Apahu, Swagunena Baddhaha, they are bound and they meet their end. Why? Swagunena. Now the word guna means temperament also and the word guna means rope also. So it means both. Bound by this nature, that they are attached to one particular sense faculty, they are destroyed, they get destroyed. Now, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, these are 5 sense objects. The examples given are also in the same order. Kuranga, Matanga, Patanga, Meena, Bhringa. And the conclusion is, why is he giving this example? Each animal is attached only to one sense. So Shankaracharya laments actually that Naraha Panchabhiranchita Kim. What will happen to the human being who is attached to all the 5 senses? So in a way it is a wake-up call that if an animal is destroyed by just attachment to one, human being is attached to all the five senses of knowledge and another five senses of action also by implication. All the 10 senses, when we are attached to all the 10, completely a victim of all the 10, what will be the condition of the human being? The idea is that these sense objects, one has to come out of this sense object. It's a trap. The mind gets very fascinated by the sense objects and it meets its destruction. Now, in that case of the animals, it's literally the destruction that happens. In our case, it may not happen literally. It is not that the sense objects will just kill us completely. But the spiritual thirst, that can get destroyed. The tendency for bhoga, the enjoyment, will eclipse that desire for knowledge, jnana. And so we find that when these 5 examples are given, it is a wake-up call to the human being that we must have sense control. And these are strong attachments. Each of the senses are very, very powerful. Now, when we study the Upanishads, etc., it is said that by default, the Lord has made the senses extroverted. Paranchikhane vyatrinat swayambhuhu. Kathopanishad says that our senses are made extrovert. So when the senses are made extrovert, how is it possible to control? For the animals, it is very difficult to control because they don't have a subtle intellect. But human being has a subtle intellect. So on one hand, we have a choice. On the other hand, on one hand, the senses are extrovert. On the other hand, we have a choice. How we train the mind and the senses not to get fascinated by the sense objects and to withdraw our attention. Because we can do one very important viveka, which is called Sukh Dukh Vivek. When we did Vivek, Vairagya, Shatka, Sampatti, Mumukshutvam, that time we had seen. Sukh Dukh Vivek is the ability to discriminate at where is real happiness and where is sorrow. That discrimination we can do, and abiding by the discrimination, we can control these senses. So this is one shloka which is to make us aware that each of the senses, don't take the senses for granted. Even in the 2nd chapter of the Gita, Bhagavan says that even a wise man, yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. Even a wise man, a great man of learning, knowledge, that person cannot take the senses for granted. Yatato hyapi, even though that person is striving to live in sense control, indriyani pramathini, the senses are very powerful. Haranti prasabham manaha, they snatch away the mind of that person by force. How? Because some past vasana will arise, some situation is there in the world outside where one must face something tempting and falls. One may know a lot of things. One may know great amount of scriptures also. It will come ahead. The same point will be said ahead also here. So the scriptural knowledge, the clarity is one aspect, but that has to be supplemented by the self-effort to control these senses. How do we control the senses? Some of the points we had learned earlier. To say no firmly to any of the senses which are harmful to any of the sense objects which are harmful to the evolution or harmful even to the basic health of the body. Recently, one survey has come where they did a survey and they found that what level of alcohol is healthy for the body. And the survey says none. So those who say that little alcohol is good red wine is good, it has health benefits, all that. The survey very clearly says that no amount of alcohol is good for the body. So when a person understands these facts and one says, no, this is not good, I will not indulge in that. So a firm no, one has to say a firm no, that this is not conducive for my body, this is not conducive for my evolution. So I will not indulge in this. Prohibited pleasure, one has to say a firm no. And this prohibited pleasure also varies from the stage of life. Certain pleasures are permitted in Brahmacharya ashram, certain in Grihastha ashram. One starts withdrawing from Vanaprastha and sannyas, the mind has to go completely away from that. So one is to say firm no. Even in the permitted pleasure, two important points are delaying gratification and moderation. Where the person does not engage impulsively. If the mind feels like eating something, one doesn't get up and just go and eat. If the mind feels like watching something, doesn't go and watch. If one is doing something important, one says not now, later. One delays the gratification. One enjoys as a master. Third is moderation. Even in that enjoyment, no extremes. To live in moderation. The purpose of that moderation also is to ultimately ensure that we rise above that desire. While enjoying it, we satiate that vasana by seeing very carefully that what it gives is just a momentary pleasure. One rises above it. And fourth aspect is balance. Sometimes we are not able to live in moderation. Some extreme happens, or we sometimes have to compromise somewhere. Simple example is there are so many festivals which come. Deepavali, when it comes, a lot of sweets, etc. are sent. And some occasions are there where we lose our moderation. So then it has to be supplemented with balance. So if I have indulged in extra and gone beyond the moderation the principle, then I balance it with austerity. Certain amount of upvas or absistence from it for some time, balance. So that overall balance is maintained and a person doesn't become attached. And fifth and very important one is the Pratipaksha Bhavana, to see the pain in that pleasure, to see the limitation of that pleasure. So these are methods by which one can control the senses. Upvas, tapasya, vrata, these also help. Now what is important to understand here is this, that the sense objects, not to take them for granted. A lot of people will say that to be amidst the sense objects and then to live in control and not be affected by them is more difficult than going away from the sense objects. No doubt it is true in certain cases. But the more we are amidst the sense objects, the more the mind also gets easily carried away by the sense objects. Hence, for a spiritual seeker, one cannot run away from the sense objects. They are there, the whole world is made up of that. But one can choose what to see, what to hear, what to taste, what to smell, what to touch. That choice one has. And to surround oneself only with those kind of objects which are helpful for one's own growth, the sattvic aspects. That will be a first step for the spiritual seeker. To avoid what is rajasic, tamasic as much as one can, to stick to the sattvic ones, sattvic methods of entertainment. That will help the seeker. Here it is an example which is given, which is not just an exaggeration, but it is a fact that the senses It takes a long time to master the senses. One of the reasons why one cannot meditate steadily or contemplate steadily is because the senses are very powerful and they drag the mind. So to sit quietly, physically controlling the senses also is difficult. Why? Because the restlessness is created by the desire to engage with the sense objects. Even to sit quietly for 15 minutes, why does the mind feel it so difficult? Because it is pressurized by this desire for sense objects. To sit with eyes closed, no hearing, no speaking, no touching anything, smelling. So when the mind is withdrawn from the senses, for some time it may be able to do, but after some time it starts wanting to break free again. So these senses are very, very powerful, and the sense management, controlling the senses, is the first step in the spiritual life. So here he has given this one example and how it is a wake-up call to a human being that one has to be very alert and not take these senses for granted. Then he goes on to explain about the sense objects. One very striking analogy he gives. See the 77th one. Doshena tivro vishayaha Krishna sarpa vishadapi Visham nihanti bhoktaram drashtaram chakshushaapyayam. So he says, Doshena tivro vishayaha. The sense objects are more dangerous than even poison. Krishna sarpa vishadapi. Which poison? The poison of the cobra, black cobra, Krishna sarpa. So this cobra's poison is supposed to be the most deadliest poison. The person dies in just a few seconds or minutes. But why are the sense objects more dangerous than the poison of a cobra? Visham nihanti bhoktaram. Poison will only kill somebody who has consumed poison or who has been bit by the snake and poison has entered the blood of that person. Drashtaram chakshushaapyayam. But these sense objects, by just looking at them, the downfall of the person begins. By looking at a cobra or by looking at the poison of the cobra, person does not die. Again, this analogy seems to be like exaggeration, but actually it is not an exaggeration, because the brooding in the mind starts when we see the sense object. Till we have not seen it, it is not even there, out of sight, out of mind many times. The moment we see, then the desire starts. Whether we do online shopping or we go to a departmental store, the same thing happens. When we go to buy one or two things, but when we see other things, then we get tempted, we get fascinated, and then we start brooding, and then the desire is there, and then one starts feeling that without this I can't live. So a person starts falling, that ladder of fall starts just by seeing. And which is why it is very, very important to have this understanding that it is better to avoid temptation rather than to fight it. Better to avoid getting into a situation where the senses will be tempted. Because to fight it, we may or may not be able to do, depending on so many factors, our own inner strength, willpower, clarity of goal, so many things. But we can avoid being in that situation. And this is not escapism. This is for some time, till the mind does not become very strong, rooted in dispassion, rooted in devotion to the Lord. Till that doesn't happen, the fence has to be put around the mind. Like the small plant, a fence is put to protect it. Once it becomes a big tree, fence is not required. In the same way. So the example given here is the poisons destroy somebody who consumes it. But the sense objects destroy person who just look at it. Many similes, many implications of this analogy one can draw. Again, please remember, this is all for introducing in the mind Tivra Vairagya. If somebody feels that, no, I want to still enjoy the world, go through it, then we will see. And that is the choice of the person. These are verses for the person who has cultivated fourfold qualification, has intense mumukshutvam. That person is being told by the teacher that these sense objects, be very alert, be very careful. See, poison, when a person is bit by a snake, the poison kills that person immediately. Few minutes maximum. And the person dies once. But the sense objects, they remain in the mind, and one broods, and more and more and more one broods. Moment by moment by moment, that spiritual urge in that person is continuously killed. It's not a one-time death straight. So that's why it is much more dangerous, because you think about it, every time one desires, one takes up a sankalpa to get out of one's comfort zone, what pulls us down will be some attachment to one of the senses or sense objects. Simple example, one would have decided to get up early in the morning, go for a jog or do some meditation. But in the night, one doesn't sleep early. One is watching some television or browsing on some internet and watching some net series, something. Now the desire for sense enjoyment drains away that enthusiasm to get up in the morning, go for a walk or do some meditation or do some study or any creative thing. So the person has compromised. Now it hits at the willpower of the person also. 5 days, 10 days, that person falls for this. The 11th day, the person will feel, I think this is not made, I'm not made for this early morning thing. I will try it sometime in the evening. So it hits at the willpower also. It makes a person procrastinate. The sense objects are like that. When they go in the mind, then the mind starts brooding. Hence, what we see here, taste, smell, touch also is very crucial. What type of objects and inputs we are taking. Second aspect is the poison, when it goes inside, it just kills that person. It doesn't further create any more desire. But the sense object is not like that. When we enjoy the sense object once, the vasana doesn't get exhausted. It adds more vasanas. Hence, the person keeps on wanting more and more sense pleasure. So the craving for bhoga, instead of decreasing, keeps increasing. Hence, the sense objects and the brooding on them is much more dangerous. Because the mind becomes more and more extrovert with that. The effect of poison is only once. It will just destroy. But the effect of sense objects is repeated. Not only repeated, it becomes deeper. So the craving increases more and more and more. So Visham Nihanti Bhoktaram Drashtaram Chakshushapyayam. The antidote for the cure for this poison is that anti-venom. Immediately one has to put that injection, tie up that part where the snake has bit, so that the blood doesn't, the poison doesn't go through the bloodstream further. So if the remedy happens instantly, immediately it has to be done. Because the pain is there and there's a big danger. So one acts instantly on that. One doesn't take it easy. But with the sense objects, it is not like that. There is no pain, there is a pleasure involved. And that pleasure is what makes that person want it more and more and more. One doesn't realize the danger of brooding, that one is postponing one's spiritual growth, one is becoming more attached. One doesn't realize any of that. And in fact, the pleasure of the sense organs and the sense objects when they come in contact makes that person feel that this is happiness. So one forgets that true happiness, what I am seeking, is my true nature. This is a temporary, momentary excitement, sense pleasure, which is absolutely fickle. It will just end. But the mind doesn't realize that. So the mind wants it more and more, as opposed to poison, where the mind doesn't want it. It senses danger. With sense objects, the mind doesn't sense any danger. In fact, the pleasure that one enjoys, a lot of it is like that example, which is when we spoke about Vairagya, we spoke about that the bone, the dog chews the bone and the bone has a sharp edge. The bone goes and pokes the various parts of the mouth of the dog, but the dog doesn't realize that the blood which is coming is what the dog is enjoying. The dog thinks that it is coming from the bone. In the same way, the sense objects are like that. They may have a little bit of pleasure. That also is if our mind is in the right state. If our senses are in the right state, then we enjoy it. Otherwise, it is not even, that also is not possible. So they drain the energy. Physically also, pranic energy also, and mentally also, the person becomes more dependent, more extroverted, more restless. And hence, this example that the sense objects are more dangerous than poison. Why this example given? So that we don't underestimate the sense objects, nor do we underestimate our own mind. That in spite of being amidst the sense objects, I will be able to control it. No, the sense objects have a different impact on the mind. Great rishis also, so many examples are there of how they have fallen. Why? Because the sense, in spite of them knowing many things, in spite of them living in forest, solitude, etc., this happens. So in spite of the knowledge, in spite of the withdrawal into a forest, going away from sense objects, the mind still has a deep craving, which in some situation comes out, and there are stories which exhibit that how a person falls. Bharat Muni, a great Vairagi, he got attached to a fawn, to a young one of a deer. The mother has died and he is bringing up the young one, and he got attached. Now he is such a great Muni who is withdrawn, who is living with so much of Vairagya. But some past karma, some vasana which is there, that makes that person attached. So the next life he is born as a deer. But his tapas makes him realize, oh God, what have I got into now? So the subsequent life when he is born again, he is called Jada Bharat because he lives as though he is dull, meaning he doesn't respond to any sense objects in the world. He spends his time mostly introverted, thinking about the Lord, contemplating on the self. So that's just one example, that how one attachment pulls even the great seeker like Bharat Muni, he falls. This is an example given in the Bhagavatam. So what about us when we have so many sense temptations and living in the samsara, surrounded by sense objects? And today we don't even have to live in the samsara to be fully surrounded. One phone is enough. So much is there inside that phone. One is connected to the world full time. So the need for sense control and the need for exercising caution and not to take the sense objects as well as the senses for granted. So doshena tivro vishaya krishna sarpa vishadapi visham nihanti bhoktaram drashtaram chakshushapyayam. Then he goes on to explain Vishaya shamaha pashat yo vimukta sadustyajat sa eva kalpate mukyai Nanya Shat Shastra Vedyapi. Same thought continued ahead. Vishaya Asha Mahapasha. One who is bound by the strong ropes, Mahapasha, of the desire for sense objects. So sense objects, no doubt, they exist and they tempt a person, but by themselves they do nothing. It is our desire which binds us to them. And when we see them or we perceive, then the desire gets awakened. So he says, Vishaya Asha Mahapasha. One who is bound by this. Vishayasha Mahapasha. It's a binding. The rope is Vishayasha, the desire for sense objects. Sadustyajat is extremely difficult to drop. The craving for sense pleasure is difficult to drop. It's very, very deep. The want for sense enjoyments is very deep, and we see also what is happening around us is people enjoying. And for enjoyment, one does anything. So many values one compromises, relationships one has conflicts, many things one doesn't do the duty. So many things are there because of which because the sense organs and the sense objects, they tempt a person, that a person just compromises with all these. And when we see all that happening around, that conditions our mind also. So Sadustyajat is, Dustyajat is difficult to drop. Sadustyajat means most difficult to drop, the craving for sense objects. But who has dropped this? Sa vimuktaha, yo vimuktaha, that person is vimukta. One who has dropped the craving for sense objects. Like today we don't have craving for childhood toys. In that way, no craving for sense objects, anything in the world. How will that happen? Only when there is tivra vairagya and deep devotion. Saeva kalpate mukte. Only that person can even imagine liberation. Na anya shatshastra vedyapi. Nobody else, even if that person has known all the 6 schools of philosophy, has studied lots of scriptures, still that person will not be able to think about mukti, because mukti is not by just intellectual knowledge. Mukti is when I genuinely feel that life in this samsara is very fleeting, it is so momentary. I have tried, tested everything. There is no permanent happiness anywhere in the sense objects. And that person has just dropped all the craving. Intensely one wants freedom. There is no pull. Like today, there is no pull that the childhood toys have on our mind. In that same way, none of the sense objects in the world, they have a pull on this person. If they are given to this person, the person may enjoy also, but there is no attachment to it. That's a very hard state to come to. That requires a lot of self-control, tapasya, sadhana, etc. Tapan Maharaj used to eat food which was bland, and in that bland food also he puts in the Ganges and allows whatever basic ingredients which are there for the taste part, that also will go away. And he used to eat that food. His level of dispassion was very different. In winter, he will not sit near the fire and warm his hands. He considered that as sense pleasure. Extreme level of vairagya where one doesn't give in to the senses. So alert the mind is. When one disciple asked him that, please I have some 25 paise, so the master asked him, Tapan Maharaj asked him, why do you want it? So he said, I want for buying salt. And Tapan Maharaj told him, ki namak khane ke liye sadhu bane ho kya? Meaning, eat what is available, what is given, control the senses. So if one wants mukti, this is not to torture oneself, but this is to control the senses. Because a little we fall for the sense pleasure. There is no end. It's a, in Vivek Chudamani only the example will come. It's like a ball which falls. When it falls on the first staircase, it keeps tumbling down and very soon it is down. So the mind is like that. If it gets one small little excuse, it will just become extroverted. After that, to control it, very difficult. Just one desire has to come. Contemplation will not be steady at all because we are a slave to these senses. Hence, the master here, Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya ji, is giving a great caution that if we want mukti, only a person who has mastered the senses well, is not tempted by the sense objects, has dropped the craving for sense objects, wants nothing but the self alone. Now, sense objects includes everything. The 10 objects of the senses, plus relationships, plus situations, whatever is the craving for enjoyment from the world outside, that craving is referred to here. Vishaya Pasha, Vishayasha Mahapasha. So one has to identify, okay, at the level of each sense organ, what is my attachment? So for the eyes, what are the attachments that I have which bind me? One cannot close the eyes full time and be living in the world. But what are those cravings which take me away from sense objects, from spiritual pursuit, or which make my mind extrovert, or which make me dependent and helpless, that without this I can't be happy? Whether it is some particular types of things that I want to see, or magazines I want to read, television shows I want to see, none of them by themselves are an issue, but when we are dependent, then those are the dependencies one has to identify. And one has to be very honest with oneself that am I justifying this indulgence, or is it that really I am free from the dependency and so I am engaging in it? One has to be utterly honest. So whether it is some types of things that I want to see, certain things I want to read, at the eyes level, at the level of the form, it is like that. Same way, for food, what type of food I'm attached to, where I have a deep craving, whether it is fried food or sweet food or hot food, any food, any specific type of food. Same way for sound. I like to hear some praise, or I like to hear certain types of music, or certain types of programs I see. So what are the things that I'm attached to at the sensory level which makes me bound? Touch, especially that the sense of touch is very subtle. One doesn't realize, but it is there. One needs to touch different types of objects, people, things. There is a fascination for that. So what is the attachment that the mind has for each of the senses? This is senses of knowledge. Then same way for senses of action, movement, grasping, speaking, reproducing, evacuating. Each of them, there is one sense attachment at which, for each of them, what is my sense attachment, which one has to list down and consciously work to get out of that. That is hard work. That is consciously one has to evolve in spiritual life. Otherwise, this will remain as knowledge, information, and the sense control is just not there. In our culture, there are so many methods which are actually given, which we today dismiss as rituals. But they are methods to develop sense control. Like one full month, one doesn't eat salt at all. Chaitra Mas, one doesn't eat salt. One meal we try to have without salt or with less salt, the mind gets so attached. In our youth empowerment program, when we train the youth, one of the exercises we do is this: mix up all the food and there will be no salt in it. And then one realizes how difficult it is. One is not able to complete that food. Because attachment to salt, attachment to white sugar, they are one of the deepest attachments as far as food is concerned. Nothing wrong by themselves to eat salt, but what type of attachment that we have? The tongue needs that taste which comes from that salt. So in that same way, there are many other attachments that are there. So when one identifies, one works on it consciously, then one gets out of that attachment. Shravan month, then there are certain disciplines one follows. Or Ekadashi Vrat is there. So many examples where through certain religious occasions, self-control is brought in. So that the person understands that happiness is not outside, it is within. So one should identify what are the attachments and consciously work on getting out of the attachments, and that may require abstinence for some time or for a prolonged period of time depending on how deep the attachment is. That is if I want to have this mukti. So that asha pasha is vishayasha pasha, I can cut asunder these ropes of sense objects which are binding me, the attachments of sense objects which are binding me. Now he gives one analogy in 2 verses, which is a contrasting picture that he gives in 79. Apata vairagyavato mumukshun bhavabdhiparam pratiyatu mudyatan ashagraho majjayatentarale nigrihya kanthe vinivartya vegat. He says apata vairagyavato mumukshun. So here a mumukshu is one whose vairagya is not very strong. Apata vairagya is momentary vairagya. It just came because of some disappointment, some disenchantment, some disillusionment, what we call as smashana vairagya. Very momentary it is. But a person has just come under the influence of that impulsively, one has left, meaning has renounced the world or has left all the duties, trying to live spiritual life exclusively. Bhavabdhiparam pratiyata mudyatan. And one wants to cross over this ocean of samsara. One has that intensity that I want to cross over very quickly, but I don't have strong vairagya. He is going in a boat. So example given here is going in a boat where the boat is weak. By implication, we are using the example of a boat. He is trying to cross this ocean of samsara. Ocean obviously cannot be crossed by swimming. So by implication, one is saying that there is a boat, but that boat is weak. There are holes in that boat, so the water starts coming inside and the boat capsizes. The person falls in this ocean. And what happens? Ashagraho majjayate antarale. The shark of desires, they violently drag that person down. Nigrihya kanthe vinivartya vegat. In the middle of the ocean, they violently drag this person down and destroy the person. So this is to say that without proper sense control, when vairagya is not there, if one tries to cross the ocean of samsara, just escaping from the worldly duties and worldly responsibilities, thinking that if I walk the spiritual path, I will just be able to realize, where the vairagya is not there, so the understanding of realization also is not very clear. The vasanas are still there. Ashagraha. The sharks of desires are there that pull the person down, and the person drowns in the ocean rather than being able to cross. So that boat must be very strong, and that boat is sense control. If that boat is very strong, the person is sitting in that boat and one is crossing that ocean, nothing will happen. But if that boat is weak, sense objects tempt that person so easily. The boat is very weak. Vairagya is not very strong. And Vairagya is not strong because Vivek is not there, sense control is not there. If both these are not there, the person just falls. And that's why it is not very advisable to escape. You know, in this commentary, Gurudev has written a very powerful line. He says, false Vairagya has ruined more men than even atheism has ever done. Hundreds and thousands of indiscriminate people in almost all religions of the world reach the sanctuaries of their respective monasteries. In the long run, however, they discover that they are not fit for a life of total renunciation and perfect self-control. That paragraph goes on, but he explains that part, that so many people just leave and they go, but the Vairagya is not strong, and somewhere the sense objects, they pull that person down. So the foundation, that's why is very, very crucial, that we lay the strong foundation of self-control, of sense control, consciously identify. See, to live in a monastery, to live in a forest, no doubt is a conducive environment where when one is not surrounded by sense objects, then to a certain extent the mind is having to handle only its own past memories, and it can turn within more easily. But if the mind has a lot of craving for sense objects and the person is not having sense objects around, mind will somehow find ways and means to enjoy, even in the monastery, even in a forest, and one will become indulgent. And which is where the fall happens. So should we not withdraw? No, we should withdraw at the right time. One very important aspect in spiritual life is this: action done with the right attitude leads to liberation, and action dropped at the right time leads to liberation. When do I drop? When do I withdraw? Only when I have done the action with the right attitude, developed self-control, developed dedication, devotion, and dispassion. Then I drop. Which is why generally it is said, Vivek, Vairagya, Shatka, Sampati, Mumukshutvam, cultivate that and then go to the teacher and live in the monastery. Or if I am going to the teacher, I should already have reduced a lot of craving for sense objects. Then go to the teacher and live in that secluded environment, so that the person can turn within and experience happiness within. Then one comes out, there is no problem. You see, the mind, otherwise what happens to that mind? The mind with just desires, for some time the mind feels very happy when one has come to a new environment, withdrawn from the world, staying in an ashram. But after some time that craving starts, which is why one has to be very alert. If one continues to live in that environment, which is what happens typically in many places, one wants some power, some recognition, some enjoyment. So one will find means of enjoyment in that place. One will bring certain means of enjoyment and make that place also more worldly and materialistic. And one starts asserting one's own self-importance. So that's why when we go to many of the ashrams and spiritual organizations, some places, why do we find that some of the people have such self-importance and one wants recognition? One is throwing a weight around, not allowing things to happen, because the mind does not have enough vairagya. So the mind still wants some recognition, some importance, some glory, some praise, some appreciation. It goes on. And the mind doesn't realize that aspect. Which is why Gurudev is saying here that false vairagya has ruined more men than even atheism has. With at least an atheistic person is clear that there is no God and the pursuit is not happening. So the person is living in a different way. There is no hypocrisy. Here in false vairagya, there will be hypocrisy. Thinking that I am seeking God, but the mind is in some other direction only. And so it's a very strong, this whole section has a lot of strong examples to make a person really shaken up. Is not to discourage anybody or to be negative, but this is to be very alert, to be very cautious. So the contrasting example is Vishayakyagraho yena suviratyasina hataha sagacchati bhavam bodhehe param pratyuha varjitaha. So this shark of desires and sense objects, Vishayakyagraho yena suvirakta sinahataha, with the sword of great dispassion, one who has destroyed this, sagacchati bhavam bodhe param, that person goes beyond the ocean of samsara. How? Pratyuha varjitaha, that's a beautiful word. Unobstructed, without any obstacles, smoothly one will go across. See, the person has already put in a lot of effort to develop sense control, and very alert that mind is, and deep vairagya that person has, one will go across. So the importance of deep vairagya, the importance of self-control, that is what this section speaks about. More we will continue tomorrow. Anything to ask or share, you are welcome. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.